Hello, all of you delightful beings out there, and welcome to the stream. I am Razim, and this is DevTales, where we are going...
Wake up! Hold the line! This hamlet shall not fall.
Well, thank you for the raid, Chrisovs. Thank you much for the raid. Welcome in, everyone. As I was saying, this is DevTales, where we're going to be working on our SCAR system, or Stories and Creatures in Alternate Realities. This system is available for open playtest on our Discord as well as on itch.io. So take a look at it and let us know what you think. We also have a Placid Plastic Duck Simulator in the upper left because ducks. Enough said there. And in the bottom left, we have Conrade here doing some 3D art. Kind of currently testing and configuring commission for delivery. And also, one last thing is that we are using the TF Talkie, so transform me to your heart's content, everyone. But anyways, well, nice, Chrisovs. Hope you had a good time. Weird that it says no game, but might be a glitch with their system. That's kind of my first assumption every time. But yeah. So, where shall we start?
Well, we could always start by going through the discussion points on the to-do list.
True. Alternatively, we start with the Pokeball discussion.
Yeah, that works. Although that is also on the discussion list.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, but it's not towards the top nor the bottom.
Ah, fair enough.
What the heck?
Okay, well, then let's just start at the top. First discussion point. Multi-attack / meld requires a feat. I forget who it... Oh, right, it was Seda. Which, by the way, Seda has come back from his sabbatical.
Nice.
He is going to be doing dev work. Right now I've got him going through chapter 1 and helping me rearrange it, reword some things, etc., etc.
Nice.
Ah, nice, Chrisovs. But yeah, he kind of brought up the idea that everybody being able to multi-attack, which I kind of threw meld under there as well because he wasn't aware of that existing, but it's kind of the same
yeah, it's a
as
separate
premise.
maneuver, but yeah.
Yeah. He kind of brought up the idea that it feels too powerful that everyone can just multi-attack. And so I figured, well, might as well put it to discussion, see what you guys think about needing a feat for using one or the other or both.
Was it that he said that it feels too powerful? Because I remember it coming up in another context as well.
Well, I guess it wasn't so much as too powerful, so much as kind of... The way he was wording it was along the lines of it made it feel like everybody was similar, I think is the way to put it, the way he put it. He was kind of drawing from like D&D and such where, you know, only really the fighters and such can multi-attack, and you know, you got your wizards that they just simply cast stronger spells as opposed to casting more of them. I'm 50-50 on requiring a feat, but
I'm kind of on the no side of requiring a feat.
So, I don't really numerically, in terms of pure balance, I don't think we require a feat, though I do understand where he's coming from in that there is a point where if you have too many options and too much available, you do start to enter a decision paralysis state, which can ironically narrow the number of choices that you can actually consciously address. So, for a lot of people, it feels like multi-attacking would be one of the more powerful options, even though functionally it's not. So the suggestion of a feat is to not necessarily... It's to make the multi-attacking option something that you opt into, as opposed to it being in the player's face if they're still kind of new and trying to understand the base system.
Yeah, I will say real quick, just so that way everyone has this in mind, because this is important to me. Every multi-attack you make is a 30 XP drop in stats.
Yeah, and on the note of making it a feat, so that way new players aren't overwhelmed. Just because you have access to a lever doesn't mean you have to pull it. I disagree with the idea of making something extra for everybody else to make it easier for one person. That's an option that they can just ignore if they don't want to use it.
Mm-hmm.
I think multi-attack is fine currently as it is. I can half see the meld move possibly requiring a feat, but at the same time, that's not even really heavily used by a lot of people right now.
to be fair, it hasn't... Like, we've had it approved, but it hasn't been added to the main document until this month. Which it is added and will be in the next update. That was kind of my bad on that. But, yeah. And for me, meld
I
is...
honestly don't know if...
Meld is a weird one. It's like between a multi-attack and a combo. But what were you going to say, Raijin?
I don't know if anyone on stream has done a non-Fury multi-attack as well.
Me.
We have. Lots of people have.
I have.
Okay.
I mean, Osmond has used, like, Bullet Seed into Rock Blast a couple times, but...
Yeah, it's just that early on, it's not the most useful thing because you don't have a pool built up. So, like, for example, if you multi-attack with all these moves, what ends up happening is that, like, you'll make your first... Early on, you'll make your first attack at, like, 8 or 9 accuracy, and then the one after that will be at, like, 3 to 4 accuracy. And at that point, you're just hoping for, like, hit stun.
Yeah. Which, yeah, that's effectively the extent of what has happened every time Osmond has done it. It's, yeah.
At later levels, though, it becomes something that you use a little bit more heavily, because when I had Verdant as a player character, and his stats were high enough to the point where he could unload all of his moves in one go.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So it is sort of a thing where you can play around with it early, but it doesn't even open up until later.
Now, I'm all for adding feats that make it more viable at lower levels, but that's just because I'm biased.
Well, we do already technically have those. They just aren't moved over.
Yep.
Oh.
Hell, there's one out there where it makes it so you can multi-attack with a single standard action, which I don't know how I feel about, but...
Ooh.
It is on the feats proposal list, and so it is there and is valid for play.
Okay.
Yeah, the feats proposal list, that one, the thing about taking from that is keep in mind how it is there may be drastically different when I actually move it to the main document. Because that
Oh yeah,
list, it's valid for play, but it was basically just throwing a bunch of things at the wall and seeing what sticks.
Mhm.
And now that I'm moving things, part of the reason why I'm so slow at moving things over is that I am trying to balance them as I'm going.
Yeah, like I've noticed several of the intrinsics of um uh well, actually there is the actually this is another thing that probably ought to be brought up is the there's several intrinsics that have stopped being intrinsics that we need to at some point replace.
I think we removed intrinsics from being.
They are still there, but they are things where it is something more to do with the character species rather than something that anybody can pick up. And
Yeah.
currently, the only thing there are. Uh, One sec. We've lost Conrad. But currently, the only thing there is the special movement feats as well as water breathing.
Yep.
I could have sworn that the typing stuff was all intrinsic.
Yeah, all that
They
moved around.
They
Okay.
were
They were.
originally, and then we made a new category of affinity or something. I'm pretty sure I called it affinity.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah,
But
affinity.
to the note at hand, multi-attack I don't think should be moved to a feat. Open to discussion over whether or not meld moves should be, because I can see an argument for that specifically, but
Yeah.
I don't know how Tel feels about it.
Well, because the one thing to keep in mind is that Meld also gets hit with that same minus 30 XP value for utilizing it.
Yeah, and it takes 2 actions, right?
It takes whatever actions you're putting together. So, like, for example, if you meld with a quick action and a standard action, that's what it takes. Like, whatever the thing is, the cost of it comes down to the fact you have minus 5 accuracy on it, which means, you know, you're taking a minus 30 XP value hit.
But on the
Like, you know,
flip
you're
side,
powering up the move with each other, but, you know, it's less accurate.
yeah.
So,
Talturius?
yeah.
Sorry, go ahead and finish what you're saying, but I've got something I want to ask.
Yeah. So I was just also going to point out that, like, you know, let's say someone is like doing a really big heavy hitter smite build with melds, and like that's their gimmick. That's what they want to do. Technically speaking, if they want to, they can in fact utilize amped stacks in order to like, you know, meld a standard on top of a fool. But, like, you know, at that point you need to build up amped stacks first. So, you know, it's like the equivalent of you know, the charge up Pokemon moves where, like, you know, they're gathering energy and all that, and then they're going to nuke your ass if you don't do something. And even then, it still won't, like, one-shot things, especially if they have armor.
Well, what were you gonna say there, Raijin?
I don't necessarily have any opinions on meld moves because it's not something I've touched or looked at too much. But similarly on multi-attacking, since we're on this, Taldarius, you've run a lot of combat outside of the stream. How much of this has been higher tier combat, and how does the multi-attack feel at higher tiers?
Yeah, so when I run combat,
In
I
terms
generally, like,
of
prefer...
multi-attack.
Yeah, so when just for like reference on these combat tests that I do, I will generally run them at various attribute breakpoints. So I will have low level testing, high level testing, like attribute 15, like just starting to get into mid game kind of testing. So the way that it generally ends up shaking out is that early on, it's a whole lot of you toss it out and you just kind of hope it works. Like, you have no real expectation of it hitting, but if it does, that's really big in low level combat, so it's like a really big gamble. And that's how multi-attack feels in the low level thing. Because if you get a second attack in and it's a standard action attack and it hits, that's like really big for low level combat. Towards more the mid game, that's when it starts being like, okay, so I'm gonna expect like the first two to hit maybe, and then like anything after that is like I got really lucky or this person has really low evasion. At which point, if it's someone that has like super high defenses, multi-attack starts feeling a whole lot better, because if you have some slower to use heavy hits and they're not dealing damage past integrity, and you have a bunch of like quicker hits you're able to do, like not Fury, but just like, oh hey, I'm gonna attack 3 times, they have almost no evasion. That's still 3 chances to either roll out, cause additional extra effects on an opponent, or to just chip damage them multiple times in a row. Now, the extra effects is where it starts getting interesting, because in the mid game is also when people will start putting actual extra effects onto damaging moves if they want that sort of thing, because now they start having the XP to be able to purchase that if they want. High level, it basically starts turning into the sort of thing where the builds have started to delineate themselves, and basically everyone will, at least in terms of like having a well-rounded build, will probably have like a quick action or 2 that they use, or dynamic. Generally it'll be dynamic at that point, because dynamic moves start feeling really good later. Extra good. They feel really good regardless, but later on they feel really good. Then there's your bog standard. I have like some filled out actions. To note, not a lot of builds require a ton of offensive standard attacks. So what sort of ends up happening is late game, you will basically just kind of end up picking up less specialized moves that have like some nice extra effects on. Notable ones include things like stat downs, because those are a bit cheaper to throw on while still being really effective. Where like, it'll be like, this is a damaging move, it just has damage and accuracy, and then like, at the end of it, I'll roll to have this stat down. And so that feels really good when it comes to late game multi-attack stuff, because at that point, like, you could get -2 to someone's stat like multiple times a turn if you have a couple of moves that have that invested. But basically the thing is because there is a restriction on multi-attack, that means you have to do at least something offensive. When it comes to various things like that, there are some interesting strategies around it, but basically until you hit mid-game, it's basically just I have nothing better to use my turn on, and so I'm going to Hail Mary this. Basically, a lot of people start liking multi-attack later game. The specialized builds like it a lot in mid-game, and early game, it's basically, oh hey, I'm gonna be just like tossing this out. Fury is like an entirely different thing, but that's because Fury is a strategy unto itself.
Of course, it kind of falls into a similar line, I would think.
It does, but Fury is a specialized strategy that basically is viable right away. It's not the most viable, but it does have actual viability, like even right away. Because, for example, like, being able to consistently make like, you know, even at 10 attributes, 3 attacks is pretty strong, actually. Because if nothing
Fury
else... Go ahead.
I was gonna say Fury is better for the people that are going all in with the multi-attack. Multi-attack's good mid-game and future for people that don't want to go that route, and still gives them the option to have something similar.
Yeah, the suboptimal build that I started with for husband, yeah, it there was no way that I was getting more than 2 attacks.
Yeah. When you get to, like, basically what I say, you start getting, like, 3 attacks consistently, is going to be in the 10 to 14 bracket for attribute levels. Because that's when you start having enough to be like, okay, I'm going to start making 3 or 4 attacks now. Especially if you're building for that, because stat changes also increase the amount of multi-attacks you can make. So if you get accuracy stat changes on yourself, you can make more multi-attacks.
Oh, I thought that wasn't the case.
I didn't think it was supposed to be either, but when I looked at it the other day, it was on the list of things, so.
Sorry, slight distraction there. What are you saying isn't supposed to be, or what is, or?
I thought that increases to like say accuracy or whatever from a temporary source, I thought that did not add to your ability to add iterations to a multi-attack.
If I understand it correctly, scene ones do, move ones don't. So if you have a move with +6 accuracy on that specific move, that does not count. But if you give yourself +6 accuracy using moves for the scene, that does count. As far as I understand it.
Yeah, that is how it works. It's just that also, originally, like, when it comes to natural versus artificial pools, I'm pretty sure that stat changes weren't meant to increase your artificial pool, or your natural pool. I thought that was supposed to go into the, Yeah. So, natural dice pool is only able to include your attribute, expertise, and skill stats, as well as activable specialties and boon and bane items. Although items that need to be interacted for the benefit do not apply. Your artificial dice pool includes bonuses from moves, equipment, buffs, or other temporary bonuses. That's from page 11. But if we go down into combat in the multi-attack section on page 82, it says, an important note to this penalty is based on your natural accuracy, not any accuracy traits you have on the move. However, stat changes or equipment bonuses to accuracy do add towards your ability to do multi-attack more.
Okay.
Interesting.
That is one of those reasons why I try to limit how many different places we explain the same thing, because, yeah, that's a mistake that we should rectify.
Yeah, that's reasonable, I suppose.
How...
Because,
So how do we want it to work? Let's start with natural versus artificial.
Okay, so on page 11 for the natural versus artificial. So first of all, the passive stat changes I think should count towards your natural, because they're just always there.
Same.
So if you have a boon or a bane item or something like that, you know, that just counts. It's in the natural. It's always active.
Well, yeah, that's already there.
Yep.
I
Yeah,
can
that makes
specify that it's from... let me make a note here.
It does specify applicable specialties and boon bane items. I'm just more like saying that stays, that's good.
yeah.
Who do we lose?
Ratchet.
Oh well, unfortunate.
Okay, I have made that note just to make sure. But yeah, I'm good with that.
I would say personally that scene adjustments should also apply, negative and positive.
Okay, so the thing though is, well, I know that it would be great. It would mean that my build would be considerably more viable, but it is a case of that might be adding a bit more complication into the mix than like I don't know.
Yeah, well, obviously the accuracy stat changes would still apply to like using the move itself. So if you had like, you know, +6 accuracy, you're still making every single one of those
At a plus
attacks at a +6. So that's effectively like, you know, that is 36 XP worth of stats that you're putting on yourself with that.
which is why I
here's-
think scene transitions should apply, but moves should not.
Here's a fun question. What is the maximum accuracy bonus that can be applied to a move?
There isn't one.
To a single
Oh.
move that affects only itself?
It's basically
Well, no, I'm
just
talking
limited by
about
XP.
to add accuracy bonus for scene.
So
what is the maximum?
scene stat change can have up to a +3 on a single move. Also
Okay.
a -3. So you can get halfway there off of any one given move, but you could also get -3 by a specialized opponent move doing it.
Yeah.
To note, for accuracy in particular, just like, you know, to have this, it is a total of 66 XP, I think. Oh wait, no, 66 is for a different one. I think that one is 42% or 42 XP to make a move that gives you +3 accuracy.
Let me
Scene
check Jason's
stat
sheet really
change.
quickly.
Because it should be 18 +6 +6 +12. 42. The other ones that start at 12 are, I think, 66 for 2. Yeah, it's 66 XP for, like, you know, physical damage +2 scene.
Yep.
Oh, no, plus
Okay,
plus
so
3. Plus 3, sorry. Just dumb.
So a thing to consider is with adding that to the mix as far as allowing for further iterations of attacks. That could very well make it to where like the meta would be everything having +3 on everything, to where
So you're-
it's
I hate to interrupt you, Var. You're getting things mixed up. Scene application of accuracy and move application of accuracy. A bonus to accuracy to a specific move are two different things. The way you're talking about it, it sounds like you're conflating the two as one thing.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that everything having scene accuracy +3.
The
So the
real quick.
Oh, you can only apply a maximum of +6 total.
Okay.
okay.
Just to keep things more in line here, the official term is a stat change.
Yeah.
Versus an
So-
accuracy, you know, increase on the move itself. Where
Oh, yeah.
the scene ones are stat changes.
You
Okay.
can only have up to 6 total bonus stat changes per stat.
Yeah. So you could, in
Okay.
fact, have, like, you could get to +6 seed accuracy on your first multi-attack if you had multiple moves, where you spent the XP on an offensive move
Mhm.
to stat change yourself, which is more expensive than just making a stat change move.
Oh, yeah.
and like, you spend your first turn trying to like multi-attack them and like getting stat buffs up and all of that, and that is definitely like, a good strategy. Stat changes are good and important and are massively important for combat character effectiveness. It's just also that there's a lot of different ways that you can get stat changes off of people.
Oh yeah.
So it is also sort of a thing where it's like, yes, technically speaking, you can massively buff up a lot of your stats with a multi-attack if you invest your multi-attack into doing that. But that also means that you, like, let's say you get to +6, now all of that XP that you have on that thing, at least
that is fair.
like for yourself, is effectively dead XP on the move now. You've gotten the benefit out of it, but now, like, let's say someone doesn't care about your stat changes and is like, going around doing all this stuff. They don't give a shit about your stat changes. That's great and all, you're super buffed up, but now those moves that you have to have different ones that are entirely combat focused, or you're just wasting XP.
Mm-hmm.
But does that make more sense now, Vari?
Yeah, but I'm saying that allowing that to be a thing might be, well, I mean, it'll probably be okay. But I'm
Right.
just saying that a consideration should be made of whether or not we want things to go that way or not.
Well, it's only one additional attack. Unless you're Fury attacking, then it's 2.
Yeah. Which, like, the real benefit is that, like, you're giving that stat change boost to all of the attacks that you're making, which is very nice. It's just also,
But the stat changes, I would say, should affect the amount of attacks you get personally.
Okay.
That would be my put forward,
Okay.
because you are investing the scene stuff. But people are also available to refute me.
No, I can get behind that.
Yeah, I can get behind that. The only thing that I'm going to say is that if we are going to make that be the case, I'm going to have to put a thing on the sheet for, like, people's multi-attack information. Because if it's going to vary by stat changes can happen a lot.
And yeah, the if somebody gets sand attacked or something, that could be very detrimental to a Fury attacker.
Yeah, it would be very bad for a Fury attacker. But also the risk is that, what if someone's just running bypass accuracy as most of their build, because they don't want to bother with accuracy and they just want to, like, hit people hard, guaranteed.
Yeah.
So it's like, really good against this build, but it also does literally nothing against that build or condition builds, for example.
Yeah.
Special ability, immune to pocket sand.
Alright, so we are going to move buffs to the natural dice pool. Okay. Make that note. I still feel that equipment, actual equipment, obviously you can have equipment that is also a boon item, but that's a separate thing, But, like, actual equipment that might somehow give you a bonus to accuracy and such would still be artificial. I still feel like we'll have other temporary bonuses be in artificial, just as a catch-all for whatever the situation might be.
Yeah, if you go, oh hey, this is like, your mortal nemesis, take like +3 accuracy versus them for this scene, like,
Be right back. I gotta take me meds.
Yeah. So that is that taken care of. And now going down to the multi-attack maneuver. I guess I can really just remove this sentence, and it should be in line with what we're going to change the...
Yeah.
That should make it in line.
And it should mean if we ever change how the natural dice pool stuff works in the future, it will still be correct down here, because now it's just saying, hey, refer to natural accuracy.
Yep. Alright, so that I don't need to add to the list, because we'll just do it right there.
Woo.
And now Vayne is deadlier again. Look, Vayne's entire gimmick this entire time, like, has been accuracy stacking a Fury attack that deals 1 guaranteed damage to chip damage them for every single attack that hits. That's been his thing.
Spectacular.
So yeah, in general, back to the original discussion here.
Truly, this is
Oh,
the
Docs.
dankest dungeon.
Ducks_all_around tipped $5. Listening to you all doing dev work is surprising relaxing. Also, I hope you are all having a good day.
Thank you, Docs, so much for that tip. And yeah, I'm having a good day. So why have I not been TF'd since you did the Puchiena? The heck, people?
Because doggo.
Alright, I still need to get a drink, but I'm gonna go ahead and fix this right away really quickly here for you, Zim. By the way, I'm gonna put this apology out since my day was asked. I spent 6 of my 8 hours in a non-stop meeting at work today, so this is a lot more pleasant than that meeting ever was. I've never been more bored in my entire life. Back to getting it.
Aw.
I fixed your TF problem there, Zim.
Dang it.
Ah, thank you. Thank you.
I'm sure that's exactly what Sim wanted.
So, the original discussion point was multi-attack or meld needing a feat. It sounds like that is a no.
Yeah, I'm thinking no myself, just because it's like, they have benefits, but the benefits to them are also quite literally the benefits are also, like, being paid off already with the intrinsic negatives that are associated with it. So, like,
Yeah.
if we did meld requiring a feat, I'd be like, okay, well, we need to remove the accuracy penalty then. Because it's already there and balanced around the fact you're taking these negatives in exchange for this. Like, because, 30 XP is significant enough, because that is that's effectively like a tier 3 character having to use a tier 2 move.
And it really depends on your build and whether or not multi-attack or meld attacking is actually effective for you.
Yeah, but also I just want to point out that 30 XP is literally how much our EXP cap, for a standard action move, grows every 5 attributes. So that's basically down tiering the whatever you're doing. In terms of, like, some XP stuff. Obviously there's power to consider and it doesn't really affect, but you know what I mean.
Alright. Also, I'm going to start adding to the dev notes of our discussions on these. I think keeping track, keeping record of these would be very helpful for us.
That's fair. There have been multiple times that we, go like, hey, we discussed this. How did we discuss this before? What did we decide?
Yeah. Alright, then another thing that I did want you guys to do real quick is look over what I wrote up for Meld, make sure that makes sense. That's on page 81. I just want a quick review of that, you know.
The last sentence probably needs to be reworded.
Keep in mind, as this is considered one attack, you only benefit up to 3 stat changes. Yeah, that.
Well, what I'm referring to there was that, like, if you have your 2 attacks, you have a +3 for accuracy on one of them and a +3 for accuracy on the other. You know, stat changes on both of those. Putting them together, that was in the original.
Yeah, no, like
discussion
I
thing.
know what you're saying. I'm just saying, when people read that, they're going to think that they can only benefit from their current stat changes up to a +3.
Oh,
Yeah,
good point.
that's-
Good point.
That restriction is correct and fine because it only counts as one attack. It's just, well,
Okay, I guess change benefit to gain.
you can only gain, yeah.
You can only gain up to a 3 stat change for each stat. Regardless of the source abilities having normally granting more.
From that, we should also. Do you want to add in another note? Like, this is like a just in case because it should be obvious from what we've written so far, but it's not explicitly stated that they also only benefit from their current stat changes once and not twice for these. Because you're combining it into one, so it should be obvious that you only get it once, but doesn't explicitly say that.
Yeah, I would explicitly state that somehow.
Run that by me again?
Okay, so let's say you have a current modifier of +2 to your accuracy. It should be obvious, but it's not explicitly stated that you get that +2 once instead of it counting for each of them. So, like, you wouldn't get +2 from the primary and +2 from the secondary if you had that +2 stat change, because it only counts as one attack. Like, as in...
Oh, you're
like,
talking about
pass-
stat
yeah.
changes?
Yeah, like, if you
Okay.
have an active stat change on you, like, let's say I have a +4 to physical damage on me because I've been stacking that up throughout the fight, and I have 2 physical things that I'm melding together, I don't get a total of +8 at the end of it from combining 2 things, I just have +4.
Okay. On that note, do we want to have, like, if they are using a physical and an ethereal, do we want it to be that they only get the higher... Like they've got a buff for physical damage and a buff for ethereal damage. They only get the higher of those two?
I say we just say that only the primary benefits from stat changes.
That works.
only the primary benefits from your active stat changes. So if you have a primary physical, but it has like an ethereal attached to it, because you're smiting or whatever, and you're looking for that, well, whatever you designate as the primary, because technically speaking, you could designate either the primary as either being the physical or the ethereal, depending on whatever the hell you want to put as the primary. But that clears up a lot of stuff if we just say, hey, pick a primary.
Which we do have that here.
Yeah. I'm just saying for the stat change.
Okay.
Like
Including stab, buffs, stat changes, and so on. And then I'll add another sentence here. Only the primary attack benefits from the stat changes you have. Like that?
Choose which attacks primary for the secondary. You take primary attack full, stab, stat change, so on. Primary attack benefits from any stat changes you have. Yeah, that looks good.
All right. Oh, I'll put in here for both accuracy and power stages. Just so I don't have to actually, specify on later.
Yeah.
Okay, so that you guys good with meld then?
Yes.
Yep.
All right. The other thing was a review of the teleport primeval feature. Make sure wording is good there. That is page 121. Ignore the table there. I have not done that yet because I'm waiting for it to be... Because there's one more ability that I wanted to bring up today. That being spheres. AoE effects with it. Because we mentioned... I'll let you guys read that real quick.
Yeah.
What?
Nothing, just the intro sentence. You're making every psychic that teleports sound lazy as heck.
Aw.
Oh, walking! I'm just gonna send my brain over there. It's easier, man.
I mean, quite literally, they haven't been introduced as a character, but they were mentioned before a couple times. Where there's one guy in ATA who literally teleports around instead of ever walking, even if it's 5 feet away. Exclusively moves through teleporting.
The wizard with unseen servant, unwilling to go across the room to pick up the remote, instead just tells his unseen servant to go change the channel for him.
Teleport by touching them. I know that you said the table wasn't changed, obviously, but
yeah.
Yeah.
So just ignore the table for now. We already have costs for all that, for everything.
Yeah.
It's just I haven't updated the table because I don't want to fight with stuff and the formatting and decorative stuff until after we've got all of them ready to go in.
All right. So one thing I do want to address is I know the the mile range thing, like just to double check, is technically speaking, like, it's allowed in combat, but it's just horribly inefficient. Does it double for the out of combat double bonus?
Is it allowed in? I guess I did not.
It just says by spending 1 minute of uninterrupted focus per mile. So you can do it in combat. It's just, you know, you
Oh, that would be hilarious, actually.
better, like, you know, it turned into Get Down, Mr. President, where all of the team is trying to protect the teleporter.
This is just reminding me of the
I
Digimon
love it
100
as a
from the LARP.
concept.
So that was originally not supposed to be allowed in combat, period. But I am also liking the idea of, okay, everybody, boss fight's here. Let's protect the teleporter. Keep him safe. Don't let him get interrupted.
Now I'm just imagining a teleporter standing off in the corner. 1 teleport, 2 teleport, 3 teleport, 4 teleport, 5
Well, you'd have to go through 10 rounds of combat without interruption to teleport away using the mile teleport in combat. Which is objectively hilarious.
That's a situation where if you get away with it, you deserve it.
Yeah,
Because I doubt that's not obvious. Like, that's got to be obvious as heck that somebody's trying to do that.
Yeah, like all the wavy magic nonsense happening, and glowing, and runes starting to inscribe on the...
Yeah. The team desperately throwing every stack of protected and insulated onto the teleporter that they could ever manage.
Yeah.
But does that benefit from the... Either way, does it benefit from double range out of combat?
I would say no.
Alright, in that case, you're going to have to specifically note that.
Yeah, I will note that. Well, just for the sake of ease, we'll leave it. They can do they can do it double out of combat. I don't mind. I mean,
Yeah, okay.
teleporting, if they're gonna be getting the mile range, they're already gonna be spending a long time anyways.
Yeah, it's you're gonna be focusing for what, like a couple extra minutes of time, maybe.
Yeah, the time frame really, if it's out of combat, it doesn't really matter. Unless, you
I
know,
can make
you're...
it matter.
Unless it's in a ludicrous distance.
Yeah,
No,
unless
I can
it's...
make it matter.
Okay, but you know what I mean in general.
I can make it matter.
I'm aware that you can.
Puts Tal in the high chair. Okay, mister. Sit down now. Let's relax a little bit. Oh, you didn't add in teleport destinations. Never mind, that's a different thing. Got it. I was about to ask what about the known places thing, but it's right there in front of my face.
And these do specify very specifically outside of combat.
Oh, I see that there's a couple extra things on the XP list that are from the previous table.
Literally everything except for combat teleport was copied over. I put in combat teleport and then I'm like, oh, right. I don't know where I'm going to be putting everything for alphabetical order or the list. I'm just going to wait until after I've got all the abilities in and then do the table. But then I came up with another idea last night, so I didn't update the table yet.
I just had an idea, so let's hear yours first before I spout up my idea.
And yes, Geeman, Furvis already has the teleportation primeval feature.
Yeah, because I just went, yeah, take it.
Yeah, he already has it. So first off, AoE. I figure only allow them to have the sphere AoE because I don't think they really need a line AoE or a cone, but sphere AoE that they can use centered on themselves to teleport everybody inside that area without needing to touch them and such.
I'm fine with that, though I do
Yeah.
want to make the line dance joke now.
Oh god.
Everybody do the time warp.
Let's do the time warp again.
Alright, so that is... It sounds... any objections there, Tal?
For simplicity's sake, I'm fine with it. Besides, also, literally, if someone goes enough, hey, can I just, like, purchase the cone version? I'm pretty sure most STs will just be like, oh, fuck it, sure.
Yeah,
It would be funny to have a teleportation breath weapon.
That's
Yeah.
Just breathe out and just make everybody teleport 5 miles away.
displacement breath.
I
Yep.
mean, look, all I'm saying is that, like, there's eventually going to be people that want it for whatever reason, be it flavor or function. And at that point, I'm pretty sure any reasonable ST will just go, fuck it, sure.
I might be making Chase a new move soon. The teleportation breath weapon sounds too mint to not give to somebody who's a jackass fighter.
So the sphere AoE for moves is 25. However, I definitely don't think we should have it nearly that high, considering, you know, how flexible that AoE can be for moves, and this is literally just, yes, you can teleport people within this sphere range.
Yeah, I'm fine making it, like, half off at, like, 12.
I was going to say 15 anyway, so 12, 15 in that area is fine with me.
Yeah,
Maybe...
I was.
Well, how big of a sphere are we gonna give them to go with for that? Or are we gonna follow the rules where they gotta, or the move rules where they gotta repurchase it over and over to get larger spheres?
Move rules.
I was gonna say move rules, 5 foot radius on the sphere per purchase. But we could also, funnily enough, always make it so that way out of combat range doubles for the AOE stuff as well.
I'm good with that. I was gonna suggest 10 XP for the sphere, but I can go with 12 for that, and it doubles out of combat.
Yeah, because also 12 XP is rounding down, which is against what we normally do, but it's half the cost.
Well, we also go 3 or 5, or multiples of 3 or 5, so...
Well, no, that's what I'm saying. Technically speaking, it breaks the rounding rules a bit, but it's half off.
Yeah.
If I go 12 is half of 25, you know what I'm saying with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that works. Well, do we want to make it where it starts at 10 feet? Because technically at 5 feet, that's those that are right next to them anyways, and so...
I'd say leave it at 5 because it is literally just the people right next to them. And then it
Now,
expands up from
I
there.
think.
Well, I guess
think
it
It'd be
does...
consider
10 feet
those.
outside of combat.
Okay, so the thing though is, within AoE, can you teleport more people than your additional target ally amount allows?
Repeat that, please?
Okay, so you've got additional target ally as a thing that you can pick. if you have an AoE, can you bypass that amount, or do you have to have both?
I believe you can bypass, but it's
believe it
everybody that's
bypasses.
in the sphere, so it doesn't care if it's friend or foe at
Yeah,
that
it,
point.
it just it removes target limiters. It just goes, all right, everyone within this area that is either willing or you beat the save of.
Hmm. Okay. Now here's the thing to consider then as a additional thing to pick up potentially. A an additional thing to pick up of a shaped AoE.
We already had that discussion.
Okay.
Yeah, we already talked about line and cone not being initially a part of it unless GM says
I think he's
otherwise.
talking about leaving holes so that way, like,
Oh,
you pick
leaving
up everyone
holes?
you want and
Ignoring
ignore everyone
spots?
you don't.
That is something that I've been thinking about, having a feat where it'll just be a generic feat that, regardless of where, what you're using the AoE for, you can specify gaps in there.
Yeah, that'd
You
be
can
a very
ignore.
nice feat for any AoE user.
Yeah.
So if we're
'cause-
planning on making that a separate feed anyway, we don't need to bother with it for here.
Yeah,
Okay.
and I will say, as far as that goes, by the rules anyways, you can, like, even if you are dropping a fireball, you can just choose not to have people affected by it.
Yeah.
You
That
get
is
to,
technically speaking, I think.
yeah.
Okay.
So I guess we don't need a feat for that.
Unless we want to make it a feat.
Yeah.
Real quick teleportation suggestion, now that I thought about it. A home teleport. Your Hearthstone.
Like a favored destination.
Yep, out of combat only, but you can always teleport there with way less concentration because it's your home.
With that, because I just kind of like have the feeling that that would really kind of overlap with the teleport destinations.
Kind of, except you could name your home.
That's fair. I'm just saying, like, we could make it so that way they're able to label a place as their teleport destination, and then, you know, maybe they can only change it like once, like, during.
I think
a
it would
long
have to
rest.
be like a step up from the destination thing. That would be like you'd have to have that as a prerequisite or something, and then a little.
Yeah. Well, you need
yeah.
the mile range first, obviously, as a prerequisite.
But it'd
Yeah,
make
so
a
that
good
would be a
capstone.
capstone. Yeah.
It was a thought because I was sitting here like every MMO has a Hearthstone of some form, so
Yeah, I like the idea, but I think we can just add to the teleportation destinations that they can set one up for themselves. So that
I
way
would
that
I
could
would
be...
argue that having some sort of physical investment of some sort to like, or like time investment or something.
I think that'd be at GN discretion at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah, because that seems more like world related. So like I could see a ton of worlds where it'd just be like, oh yeah, no, you could have that, and other ones were like, oh, that is like a really important thing. All right, let's set this up now.
Yeah.
You guys have to live here for 30 days without leaving. What? I'm kidding.
To
If
be
you're
fair,
away from the location for longer than 30 days, you do get evicted.
Look, all I'm saying is, what could be a higher cost to most adventuring parties than having to live around each other with no adventure uninterrupted for a month straight?
Oh God.
I know
That's a
some
pretty
parties that
heavy
could do it,
cost there.
but I know many more that cannot.
Yeah, but I know plenty that could. It's just also there's plenty where like that is asking for like a gargantuan thing.
Considering the one campaign we have had on the channel where we actually had an established home that we went back to and we had some downtime there, it went very, 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 very bad very, very quickly. Of course, it didn't help that, you know, half that party was evil.
Oh lord.
Nice. So we had the probation home and the probation officer home mixed up with each other. Nice. I'm sure that caused no problems.
Me whistles and I've never put a party on probation. I lie.
Lie as easy as you breathe.
I've never had a babysitter as a player character. I lie even more.
Yeah, honestly, that could probably just be like included as a thing, but it's probably more like setting and ST specific on what, if any, cost it would have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Figured I'd bring it up anyways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Bloody heck. Oh. Mini side note to scammers out there, if you call me from the exact same phone number with a different scam, I'm still gonna know it's you.
That makes it funnier.
I've been getting habitual calls from this one New York phone number. It's the exact same phone number, and each time I've answered, it's been a different scam attempt. And I'm just like, my guy.
At this point,
Really?
I have started to annoy the scammers to a point where they've stopped calling.
I wish they would. I cursed this last one out.
Oh no, what I do is I start calling them back over and over and over and just being a complete nuisance.
Unfortunately, I'm pretty sure that this number's a spoof.
I recently for because you know, like one of the games I was in had an April Fool's event. And there's like, you know, conglomerated AI big bad villain people. And we had access to like, you know, magical like, you know, prank artifacts for the April Fool's Day event. And basically, like, you know, your character would get rewards based on how creative or hilarious your pranks were. So my character immediately sat down for 6 hours and called each of the individual big bads on scam cell phones that he was conjuring with the April Fool's magic, and spent literally like all day just spam calling all of the various big bads, and like effectively just being like a remote telemarketer, like scam salesman.
Wow.
It was a very funny time. On an aside, that character is now being hunted down by multiple of the big bads to try and kill him for doing that.
Of course.
Because it was a magical cell phone, it automatically picked up, and because they were like AI robots, it just started playing constantly. They didn't have a hang up button, and they couldn't decline call.
Oh no.
We call that a skill issue.
I know, right?
All right, so Yeah, we're just adding the sphere AoE and ability to set up teleportation destination for a home location. You know, pending storyteller approval and all that. Anything else that we want to touch on for teleportation?
I don't think so, at least for now. We could always revisit this later. But for now, I'm looking at this. I don't see any.
Yeah, it looks fine to me.
Okay. Another thing that should be pretty quick, that has come up multiple times, is phasing others to move with you. Because I know it's popped up quite a few times where people have wanted the ability to, you know, touch somebody and make them able to phase through a wall as well, or such.
That feels like a feat.
Definitely a feat, I agree.
Definitely a feat, yeah. Especially considering you could definitely also start using that with like grapple rules to do like the nastiest things ever.
A feat, and then maybe use primary scale or secondary scale or something like that for how many people you can take with.
Well, we'd probably just use feat scale for that.
There's a feat scale?
Yeah, there's a feat scale.
Yeah, what is feat scale?
The feat limit, it goes off of the primary scale, and it gets specified as either half or double.
Oh, okay. Because I was.
It's either feat limit, double feat limit, half feat limit.
And feat limit's primary scale?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, I was looking at. Hold on, where was it? Yeah, it was mental fortitude. I was not exactly sure how that scaled.
Is that on the main document or second?
It's a psionic affinity.
Yeah.
Okay.
Which says, upon purchasing this feat, you receive a pool that refreshes each day of points of preventative healing that be given out to yourself or allies. This pool is equal to double your feat limit. This healing may be split up in any way that you wish and does not need to be spent all at once. This ability uses a quick action, requires a touch, or can be used up to half primary range away with a standard action. If you ever see something like that, Vari, at the top of the feat section, like, where feat start in rules, there's the standardized terminology section.
Okay.
Alright, so the general idea sounds like yes to phasing others with you. Probably make it an intrinsic, so your storyteller has to approve. And they may be...
Especially because it's an intrinsic upgrade anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, so that means the mental fortitude is 10 HP. For a 20 attribute character.
Well, it depends whatever their primary skill is.
Yeah, 5.
Yeah, well, if the primary scale is 5, then yes, because it's quite possible to like completely ignore your secondary
Oh yeah,
attributes
because you could just dump everything into secondary. Yeah,
into your
okay.
primary attributes instead of anything in your secondary. So
Yeah.
there's the attribute scale, primary scale, secondary scale. Feats go off of primary scale.
Hello, Hex. You're a good boy. Alright, so we're gonna make it a feat, and it'll be subject to feat limit. And are we gonna make it equal to feat limit, double, half, or how many people you can bring with you at once?
Can they use it any amount of times per day?
I would say so.
In that case, I'd lean half.
Have them go, you know, they'll have to make a couple of trips, but, you know.
Yeah. That way they also just can't, like, emergency grab and, like, yank the entire team through a wall.
Yeah.
Unless they're, like,
Until high
hyper
level.
late game, and at that point, you kind of just do what you want.
Yeah.
The rubber
half
duckies...
feet limit if they don't have to grab anything.
The rubber duckies at the top are there because ducks.
We need to give chat something to look at other than our amazing faces, unfortunately. Even though our amazing faces are obviously worth looking at.
Oh, we also have the art there that they can look at, but yeah. It also
You gotta
helps
always have
me a bit with my ADHD to have them there to just kind of look at and refocus a bit.
Ah.
Okay, so we got that taken care of. Raijin, you there? Raijin?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't hear you say. Did you have any thoughts about the balancing thing that you brought up the other day?
Not. I had a further discussion with Era, and I don't really think it's anything particularly important. It was just an observation I had that I wanted to explore.
Okay, so just leave that there. He was, for those not aware, it was essentially that most character sheets wind up looking the same because of how we've got combat skills laid out and such, and it tends for a heavy leaning towards the natural and sometimes trained skills.
Yeah, Raijin and I had a conversation about it. There is a minor point to it, but when we were talking about him, I also mentioned that that's if you're combat focused. There's a lot of players that might be a intelligence focused or that last column focused where they're lore monkeys, or somebody that focuses on
Riv.
yeah. Or there's the weapon focused and stealth focused characters that want to be all roguey in the back alleys and might not have too many moves, aka Jace.
Yeah. A lot of times though, it seems like focusing one thing on like the knowledge skills is kind of what a lot of people do. Like, I don't know.
I mean, that people will generally specialize their characters, yes, but
Yeah.
like, for example, like I'll just point this out right now. Riv has something like 20 dots in knowledge skills spread across them, and he is a 10 attribute 275 XP character. He literally has less than we have in Wild Traditions, and he has like something like 20 dots in various knowledge skills.
Jesus.
He is quite literally a little walking library for his team.
Yeah,
His bag is
Jason,
filled with books.
Jason, the same game, has 12 points in train skills and 12 points outside of train skills.
Well, where I was getting was particularly at character creation. If you're expecting combat like at all in the early stage, your natural entrance skills are kind of already spoken for because there's so many of them that are extremely important to combat that even having the one dot is good. And even if you're doing just like a slight bit of optimization, like for example, pretty much everyone should be putting points into integrity if they're expecting combat. Probably evasion so that they're not always getting crit unless they're wearing a bunch of armor. Initiative, the attacking skill of your choice, and so on and so forth. And my concern was just that over time in any combat-oriented space, it ends up looking very samey, which isn't necessarily bad. It was just something that I wanted to discuss.
Well, as far as evasion, for Osmond, I have just resigned myself to the fact that any time that he's gonna get hit, he's gonna get crit. That's just a fact of life.
Which that is another potential discussion that Era brought up if we want to have that tonight.
Oh, the evasion thing?
Yeah.
I don't know if we want to have that tonight, because I didn't sit down and do any math to figure out how to balance out
All right.
evasion items.
I mean, I guess I will say, if you guys want to talk about anything that's related to, like, combat math or any of that, obviously, like, you know, probably talk to me about it a bit.
Yeah.
Because I've already ran, like, all the numbers and done, like, a shit ton of tests.
Yep. Haven't gotten there, but the idea of the opposite of armor being an evasion boost instead of an integrity boost might be a thing worth looking into. But I never flushed out the idea. I've been busy this week. But something to put on the table, since we have armor that basically asks us act as a second integrity to a degree. Having evasion items that act as like a second level of evasion might be interesting to add on to the system. For those that don't want to eat damage.
Yep, that's fair. I know I put some options for that in the like minor options, but like some option adjacent stuff for that in accessories.
Yeah, and that's the other reason why I didn't look into it, because I know in accessories he had some adjacent options, but it's worth thinking about moving forward how much we want to put into that.
That's fair. But yeah, no,
I think the main point there being, you can totally ignore evasion if you want to, if you just stack up integrity and armor. You can't ignore integrity.
Another thing I've heard is some people are having issues with the skilled penalties. Feeling like they're too rough, but that's something we might want to think about specifically at some point. I don't know how to word things after so many meetings today. My brain just decided to shut off in the middle of that.
What do you mean so many meetings?
so-
You only had one.
Okay, a 6-hour meeting counts to me as 12 mini meetings, just in a line
good lord.
and with a bunch of people I didn't want to be in a meeting with. Half of which were in an office writing on a whiteboard I couldn't even see.
Gross. But yeah, I think that after we've like fully implemented out the size category thing, yeah, that might have bearing on the discussion about integrity and evasion.
But yeah, we definitely probably want to give people an evasion option.
That's fair. I will say that yes, evasion and integrity are higher value skills than a lot of the other skills. But we have also known that like from the beginning when we were designing this shit anyway. I think we even have it listed. I think we have those two as well as perception on our little like, you know, recommended skills thing for that reason.
Yeah.
Because I know somewhere in this, at some point, we literally just straight up went, hey, you want these. Please buy these. They are very important, actually. I don't know where we did that. I just know that we effectively did that. At some point.
Maybe it's worth exploring, I would say, 2 more free dots at character creation. One that they have to put into one of the defensive stats or initiative they want. And then another that has to go into one of the offensive skills. So brawl, emit, or the clasher marksman. Just to alleviate some of that imbalance at the start, at character creation, of where it feels like you have to put all of your free dots into those skills.
I will also say we did just increase the amount of starting XP from 60 to 100.
That's
Yeah,
fair.
So they can
That's
use
fair.
their starting experience to put extra dots in new skills.
Yeah, like I'm fine keeping an eye on this. I do just want to point out that like we did also just increase the amount of starting XP people get access to.
That's fair.
I complete. We should go through the games, by the way, and make sure everybody knows that they got a 40 experience boost, because I don't know if that got reflected in any of the games so far.
Because it didn't, technically speaking, go live yet. We were testing it out with PTV.
Gotcha.
Yeah, it's something
But, like,
that I'll be...
I didn't hear it.
But the core of it, I don't think it's necessarily a problem. It was just something interesting I noticed when I was making the character sheets for all the Pokemon and Wild Traditions. When you do them back to back to back, it kind of starts to lay out that all of the natural skills, you really, really want them in a traditional sense, which is good, but it also kind of makes it feel very heavily loaded.
Yeah,
towards
which
natural.
Which is also why we even made it a thing originally. Funnily enough, that is one of the reasons that we are initially made all these categories in the first place and gave people a certain amount of dots to spend per category at character creation. And then we introduced the floating dots that you could put anywhere, and then we've been increasing the amount of floating dots. But that is also why, also at one point we increased when we went from 24 to 27 skills, we bumped up the amount of like skills per category they got by 1 as well. But yeah, that's also part of the reason why we did that in the first place, was just to go like, hey, look, you can't just put everything in natural skills.
All right.
Because natural skills are very nice because they focus on like, you know, your character's natural abilities mostly.
Yeah. All right, let's go and move to the next thing. Well, there's quite a few here, but I think Pokeball supplemental rules is what we should cover first because, well, we've got limited time left and they're going to be relevant tomorrow.
That's fair.
So,
Actually, you know what? Here, do we have a thing right now available where it has all of the available Pokeball rules that you're using in Wild Traditions?
you mean like what I came up with?
Yeah, because I know we were working with that as a base.
Give me a moment.
Give me 1 second. I'm gonna walk away for half a tick here.
Because what I'm gonna do is in our little like DevTail notes section, I'm gonna write down all of the current Pokeball rules so that way we can all see it and all see what we're working with as a base.
I just had to hide the screen because I was going over to check,
Your DM sheet effectively.
yeah.
That's fair. I remember when I was doing some dev stuff while you guys were away at a con, and I was streaming it, and I literally went through all of my characters' character sheets just with a quick scroll at some point, and I was enjoying watching chat going like, hold on, wait, go back to that for a second. I know at some point the Rivs date stolen data pad thing came up early because there was one called Digipad parentheses stolen encrypted, and someone went, hey, wait. So I had fun with that.
Alright, I copy and pasted what I had over to our note document. Yeah, it was just that the particular browser window that I needed to go to was the same one that was streamed on, you know, that's on the stream, so yeah.
Yeah, that
That's fair.
could be unfortunate.
Alright, so I'm just gonna... I'm just gonna break it up like that, so that way it's broken up into little sections. That way if we change one thing, it's really fast. Alright, so first of all, acrobatics or athletics, I think those are fine skills because those are literally like the anti-restrain skills. And grapple, and forced movement, and all that shit. Any of you guys have input on that?
No, I mean, I came up with the rules, so...
Well, yeah, but I'm just addressing like everyone here.
I mean, I could in theory see someone like trying to get away with doing like brawl or clash or something, but
Back.
yeah, that's a case of
I-
GM discretion of whether or not to allow nonsense.
Where's the Pokeball stuff pasted?
It's in the DevTail notes section. So like the 2025 SCAR notes.
Got it.
I disagree about things other than acrobatics or athletics because this is when you're inside the Pokeball. Like,
Oh, yeah,
outside
so
of it,
Flash
you
wouldn't
can
work
attack
anyways.
it. Yeah.
Yeah. For outside of it, I did also went ahead and put goes against targets PEV because I know that's what it currently goes against. But when you're inside of it requiring an acrobatics or athletics roll to escape, I'm fine with that.
That part I'm fine with as well.
Yeah.
Yep. So, one thing that I do want to address, just because I do find it a little bit funky. Like, I understand the logic, but also, like, inside of our rules, it's a little bit funky. Is it going against the target's physical evasion? Because that is what it currently goes against. But it feels weird that there's, like, you know, for it, like, making contact and working, it's effectively just an accuracy check, and that's it.
There is a issue here of how it works in the Pokemon games and anime and all of that, which apparently, I swear that they have some self-guidance to them.
They do.
Unless you're playing Pokemon Go, then they have the ante.
Yeah. Well, or,
yeah.
or you use a pro controller like I did. Oh, wait, no. I was thinking Let's Go. But yeah, either way. But yeah, the technically with, you know, the lore, you don't even get to evade it. It just automatically hits.
Yeah, which is why I was thinking about it, and I was just like, wouldn't this be something that'd be better suited to soul save?
We could do that.
Or if it affects them?
I could see that being the case.
When we're doing that note, did we also want to change it so that way, well, yes, it's an athletics or acrobatics, you can use any of your attributes, mind, body, or soul as your primary? Considering that very weak Pokemon seem to still be able to get out of Pokeballs and cannon that aren't physically strong.
I mean, yeah, that would make sense.
Yep. But even just referencing the wiki real quick. It does say that, like, you know, only in certain circumstances can a Pokeball miss.
Yeah, they're magic items.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
so
like,
them
the
going
known-
after soul save would make it a lot more simple as far as the whether or not it initially hits.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess.
Which I suppose in that case, it's not a matter of whether it misses, it's a matter of you got hit, but whether or not you actually go in or not.
Yeah. The other thing that we could do is make the capture effect an extra special effect thing. So that way, like other force movement things, like you still require to be hit, and then if they try and affect you, but if we have to go through 2 stages to affect something, then I could definitely see, like, reasonable, like, jacking, like, really high DC for escaping. If we want to still make it so that way, like, you know, there's an evasion check so that way you can parry it on, like, evasion to knock it away without it just being, oh, you got clipped by it, you're in the ball now. So basically, like, the way I can see it, we can either make it a 2-stage, like, you know, bypass like, you know, once it passes accuracy, then it goes to try and affect, like, you know, do the secondary effect to get past soul save, like how it would, like, if you were using a weapon or a move. Because then you could also do things like, you know, jacking up the numbers on accuracy and going against soul save based on the Pokeball quality. You know, for yeeting Ultra Balls, like that, if you're tossing around Ultra Balls, I feel like they would probably have some pretty gnarly accuracy and or soul save modifiers. Or effect modifiers to get past soul save.
I think for the sake of this, I know there's a lot of different Pokeballs out there, but just going off of the primary three, well, Master Ball is its own beast.
Master Ball is I hack now. Cheat.
Yeah. Master Ball is, yeah, you're caught. Have a nice life.
Yeah, Master Ball is get fucked.
So I actually have an idea for specialty ball things. But
Well-
continue with what you're saying, though.
Based on the primary three, Pokeball does not have any, additions, etc. Great Balls, trying to use them would have your rolls have -1 difficulty, and then Ultra Ball -2 difficulty on your rolls to actually get them in the ball.
All right, so like difficulty 5 accuracy, difficulty 5 effect roll for Ultra Ball.
Yes. That's what I'm proposing.
That's a pretty good way of like making it pretty kiss. And so that way also you could go like, oh hey, I have a valid specialty ball. It gives me -X difficulty.
And most specialty balls wind up being like, if this condition is met, it is the same as an Ultra Ball. If this condition is not met, it's the same as a Pokeball.
Yeah,
That's kind of the
but
stats for most of those. Not all, but most.
A way to change it from like, it could be a case of the specialty balls increasing the escape difficulty. Potentially.
Either way, we'll focus on just the base ones for now.
Yeah.
Let's just focus on those.
Yeah.
All right. So do we want to two-stage it with it being an accuracy and then an effect?
Yeah, I can see that.
If it's SS.
Either
Okay.
way, after you're caught, you have 3 turns to escape, or you are actually caught.
That sounds normal and to the canon and fine.
Yeah.
Let's
Yeah, you get 3 wiggles.
Sorry, you're a wiggle.
No, you.
No, I'm pretty sure you are in fact a wiggle.
All right. I wrote down you have 3 escape attempts. If the third fails, you are caught. So that way there's no turn timer fuckery
Yeah.
stuff. And it just go, you must attempt to escape every turn. As like a little undernote just in case.
Okay, so then for the DC to escape. Obviously, the way the most of the balls work is it's based on your HP,
Yep.
Yep.
as well as
A lot of
conditions.
times it's
and
HP
such.
percentage. But yeah.
Yeah.
So I guess a good way So, the catch chance is, I believe, approximately equal to the catch rate of the ball the catch rate of like the Pokemon itself, which we can just kind of ignore.
Yep.
And if there's any bonus status on them. And then there's also modifiers for the health. I'm gonna just pull up the formula actually.
I do want
It's
to.
good. The health is
current
based
model.
on quarters. Or at least it used to be. They probably changed it again.
Yeah, I'm checking the current Scarlet and Violet.
I do want to make sure that we keep this as Kiss as possible.
Yep. I just want to check this initially to see like what the base that we're working off of is, and we can decide, okay, that's dumb, we're not doing that, or okay, that's actually a good idea for
Because
like
if
some
we
of the
want,
stuff.
if we wanted to keep it Kiss, I would say +1 to the DC for each quarter health lost in that, and wounds also incur a +1, and then a +1 for a status, just to make it easy.
I don't want that many +1s because that way if you get wounded once, and even if you don't have a status on you, you get wounded once and you're in the negatives, that's +5 difficulty.
Of course, that would honestly somewhat make sense.
Yeah,
Well,
that's
yeah, but
kind of the
you-
problem is we also gotta look at what would make sense for how they actually function.
Yeah, but you also got to remember that in our system, the way that it technically speaking works is 0 HP is you're halfway through your health bar. It's just now you're taking on legitimate injury from the fight. So that also means that, like, because for example, like, if someone has 20 max HP, like that's their thing, they're alive until they get to 20 negative. And they could still get healed up, they can still second wind out of things. Like, you know, so even if they're slightly negative, that would be a +5 difficulty. So if we want to be adding in difficulty on stuff, every difficulty you add is -25% successes on average. So going from difficulty 7 to difficulty 8, you're taking away about the quarter of the successes that someone will get.
So,
Did we want to do it at 50% thresholds instead then?
yeah.
Yeah, so if we're doing 50% thresholds, that would mean that someone would be at difficulty 7 normally. If they're below half of their positive HP, that is difficulty 8. If they are at 0 or below, that puts it at difficulty 9. And if they have a wounded condition, that would, again, increase the difficulty, but that only really matters for things like difficulty decreasers at that point. And so if someone, for example, even if they're full HP, if they have 2 wounded stacks on them, that's treating them like, oh, hey, they are, you know, they are a Pokemon that's like, you know, the equivalent of below 0 HP.
What are your thoughts, Zim?
A lot of numbers.
The current proposal is when you're at between 51% to full HP, there is no increase in difficulty. When you're between 0% to your health and 50%, you're at increased difficulty 1. If you're below 0, your difficulty is increased by 2. And if you have a wounded status, you still have that difficulty increased by 2.
So you're talking challenge rating then?
No, difficulty.
Difficulty. The number you'd
We're
have
talking about
the
difficulty
escape
on
rate.
the escape roll.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Right now, go ahead and write it out in the notes for me. So
Yeah.
it
I
might
think
be.
that already is.
Yeah.
The other way of doing it, although this would make it take longer, would just be +1 difficulty per wounded condition you know, accrued.
Also, the big important, like, primary reason we're having this discussion thing of how will breaking out affect your action economy?
Yeah, but
We'll get to that.
I do just want to.
Okay,
Yeah,
yeah.
we'll get to that. Yeah, that's like the main discussion here. Because I'm also kind of in favor of the per wounded status for like maximum kiss, but like I also understand if it's just going to be based off of with a mix of health.
I think if we do it the 50% wild or method, it'll at least be close enough to the way that Pokemon quote unquote does it to feel good.
Yep.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'm just pointing out is that, like, you know, the way that this does work is also that, like, you know, you're effectively maxing out bonus if they're like hurt and you put 1 wounded condition on them, which, like, I'm fine with, but I'm also just thinking about people having to calculate their HP percentage on the fly.
Oh, right. People can't do that in their heads always.
Which means that I might have to put in like a small little like visual indicator for your HP percentage for some people.
I wouldn't bother with that. I think with the 50% idea, it should be good enough.
Yeah, that's
It's just half.
easy.
And if they still can't figure it out with that, well, find a different system. I'm sorry, but if you can't figure out what half of a number is, just.
Funny, I've met enough 5e players that are unwilling to even do 5e math.
I was about to
They
say,
exist.
like, I've met 5e players. They play 5e.
Ouch.
I want to apologize on our behalf, but it's true, so I'm not going to.
Either way, don't bother putting that in the sheet. They can figure that out. So then comes the question of how much the challenge rating is actually going to be.
Yeah.
Which I know I put in DC in there, but that
Yeah,
is...
it's technically SR, success rating or whatever.
Oh yeah, the success... That's what we were trying to standardize, success rating.
If we're doing it the way we are, a Pokeball at 5 is fine with me. Because 5 isn't... Well... How many dice would you have to have, Tal, to make 5 an easy SR?
It depends on difficulty. So you talking about standard Pokeballs for this?
Yep, standard Pokeball's full health.
Standard Pokeballs full health. In that case, you need to have 11.25 dice to make that 50% of the time. However, you also have 3 attempts.
Yeah.
So, for that calculation,
Because we're going to need that calculated out, because we also want to consider...
Also, the soul save. How is that going to be calculated out for these?
Well,
Oh.
the soul save is for the Pokeball to affect you.
Yes.
But yeah.
That's
just standard.
Yeah. It's probably all going to be based off of this, to be honest.
Okay,
'Cause
so
I'm
SR being the same as the soul save?
No, SR is something else that we're figuring out.
Yeah, no, I'm saying that, like, never mind. I'll ask once y'all get done with the thing.
Right, so my brain is off track now.
Sorry.
Okay. Because we want to make sure that with the Pokeball, at least at base, we want at least an intro level character to have a quasi decent chance of escaping at full health.
Yeah.
Because even Rattata had no trouble escaping a Pokeball at full health at the beginning of the games.
In that case, I'll base this around, let's say, like 7 dice. Assuming that, like, people like actually invested into either acrobatics or athletics at start.
7 or 5 dice, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I'll put like 7 on the high end, just assuming that you're not literally a bog standard starter character and you've gotten like at least a little bit of XP or attribute. Because even the wild Ratttas generally are like level 3, so they're not level 1.
True. All right. Yep. Somewhere in there.
Yeah. So with that, they're going to, on average, roll about 3 successes. They have a DC of 5. So, yeah, they have... If they're rolling 7 dice, they're over 3 rolls, you will either have the opportunity to spend some boost dice or vigor or do something to try and get out of it over 3 rolls. Willpower, all that stuff. So, a good starter character will have a 50% chance of hitting a 3, effectively. So, every time that I up that, like, a little bit... Yeah, like, there's probably, at being, like, full health, there's... I think Napkin Math says about, like, a 60% chance of escaping without investing resources.
Okay, and that's at a 3 base, not a 5?
No, that's at the 5 because with this dice pool, they're on average going to roll 3 successes.
Gotcha. So
They need to, and it's meets it beats it, so they need to hit a 5.
Okay, for a Pokeball, that sounds slightly high for matching up with the games, and slightly high for an early game.
Yeah. To note, that's
shutout.
60% chance of escaping.
Yep.
So that's a 40% capture rate.
Yep. I still feel that's a little high.
Considering that they've got 3 chances.
Is that 60% with the 3 chances, Tell, or without?
Yeah, that's with. That's like after the 3 chances.
Okay.
And
Yeah,
either way, they have their allies there that can break the Pokeball open.
That is true. I just worry about instant you lose effects.
Yeah.
Being too.
But it's also not.
Yeah, and
instant you
also
lose 'cause
there's
you have
the
3 turns.
Yeah.
that is eating 3 turns worth of someone's actions potentially too, which is rough.
Yeah. But that's also why I keep bringing up the whole. Okay, well, there's also the fact that there's, you can always invest, like, willpower or vigor or boost, and if you don't have any of those available, that is kind of indicative of, oh hey, you have exerted yourself now, and at that point, like, you having exerted yourself like that,
While I understand the concern of instant loss, I don't think it's going to be as frequent of a problem as you're worried it will.
Okay.
And either
Yeah,
way, Pokeballs are kind of broken.
Yeah. I mean, actually, you know what? Funnily enough, at least with some of the older generations, I don't know about the newer ones, but like the ones that I play, like Gen 3, Gen 4, a Pokeball at a full health, like a full health entity, like a normal ass Pokeball, has a 33% chance of working if they're full health.
Huh.
Like I said, broken.
Yeah. Well, we don't also want to make things unfun broken, but if we're okay with that 60% chance, we can roll with it for now. That's fine. Considering that there should be other people able to help.
Yeah, that's the big factor that we got to remember, that you're fighting against a wild Pokemon in the games. They don't have allies that are sitting there like, oh, I'm just going to smash the Pokeball.
Yeah. But yeah, so that is. Yeah, go ahead.
I also want to point out that this is not a you are dead. This is, okay, your circumstances have changed.
Yeah,
Where
but
could this story go from here?
It depends on the storyteller. I always have this worry about the and your character's no longer your character thing, because I've had GMs that do that kind of stuff. Well, they'll be like, okay, well, this big bad boss has a finger of death. Oh, you don't have a really great will save. That sucks for you. Roll a new character.
Yeah, that's
your
not
character
gonna be
gets teleported halfway across the world. Make a new character.
That's not going to be the case here. The worst that might happen is you go into the box at first. But even then, for the supplement, I will be putting in that you should probably not have newly caught Pokemon instantly transferred. That is something that I will very much say that while that's how it works in the games, does not mean it should work here.
That's the only thing I worry about, because I know people and I know GMs that will absolutely do that to their players, and I just think that's a nasty thing to do, and I don't like it, both as a GM and as a player. I think it's just not cool.
To be fair, my opinion on those kinds of GMs, you should go find a different GM.
The only exception being one-offs where you make it clear that there's a high likelihood that these one-off characters are going to die.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
But that,
to be fair, if you're playing like, an AD&D style of game where you're doing like old school shit, you should probably come prepared with like 5 character sheets.
yeah, but
That's on the small end.
Well, I'm giving the minimum here.
Either way, let's not try and while I can understand the idea of wanting to prepare for bad storytellers, I'd rather not focus I'd rather not focus on those.
Okay.
I'd rather not sacrifice something that should work one way and nerfing it or something just because there might be a bad storyteller at some point. If that makes sense.
Okay, so we can leave that as is. Then the DCs are probably fine from there on out, right? By 50%, so 7, by 2, so 10.
Also, fun fact, this ace trainer that you are battling does have a Master Ball.
Yeah, well, he's going to have a Master Ball shoved up his... If we survive and Chard finds that damn thing, it's getting shoved up somewhere. See how you like it, human? Thunk. But that's...
Yeah, in Judex, every trainer that has gone through and defeated the Elite Four, they are given a Master Ball. That's their prize for it.
Oh, I see why Chart decided to attack them and thought it was their fault.
Yep. Oh yeah, by the way, fun fact about the so you know how I mentioned the whole 33% catch chance like at the beginning of the game?
Mm-hmm.
That's assuming that you're trying to catch something that has a catch rate of 100. Things like Caterpie and other things like that, so like Caterpie, Rattata, other things, have a catch rate of 255. So if you yeet a Pokeball at a full HP Rattata at the beginning of the game, it has an 85% chance of catching them.
Well, Ratty's top percent, so
Yeah, I know. I'm just giving you like a small little fun fact about that because different Pokemon have different catch rates.
yeah, that part I'm aware of. The catch rate thing. I haven't sat down and figured out the math in a long time on that because
Yeah, I just went and
they
rechecked
change it
it.
every game.
Yeah.
For the love of God.
Although that was for me knowing it off the top of my head because I would Nuzlocke Gen 4 constantly. So like I just happen to know what it is. I know that like the capture rate stuff now is like I think it still goes off of the 3 times max HP minus 2 times current HP, all of that divided by 3 times max HP. So like, you know, if they're full HP, it's 1/3.
One way or the other.
And then like, you know, it goes through like the 15 fucking multipliers that exist.
Yep, not to cut you off or anything, but since we have limited time left, we should probably tackle the big bad concern.
Yes.
Which is action economy if you escape.
Yep. Which, okay, well, one thing I will point out about at least like the games and all that, in the games it does not impact opponent turn.
Yeah.
I think I'm good with it being... It takes up a standard action, but otherwise they have their full action, or full turn.
That I'd be fine with.
I do
How's
think
that-
it should for this, considering, I mean, in the games you only have one action per turn anyways. But, yeah. What were you going to say, Vari?
Okay, so is that even, if it takes them several turns to get out, or is that initial turn, or...
That is even if they take several turns to get out.
Okay.
And I'm assuming we're doing the only one turn, or one attempt per turn thing. So not following cleanse rules with this, since these are special, stupidly magical
It's an
objects.
special, yeah.
Okay.
I can foresee Viv screaming about Varga taking like several turns to break out.
Varga's got a turn finally.
Well-
Varga's at least got this turn.
To be fair, Varga didn't stay in the same Pokeball more than one
Yeah,
turn.
he broke out and then he got recaptured immediately.
Yeah, so at least this way he'll have a turn.
Yeah.
So here's my question about this. Can you second wind out of Pokeballs?
I'm going to say no. They are not actual conditions. They are their own special thing. So I would say no second wind out of a Pokeball.
Alright. Do we still want Great and Ultra Balls to have different SR?
I definitely do. I am thinking for the SR, it would be... We can follow... Whatever we come up with for them, we can follow similar to crit rules, where it's 5 or whatever the calculation would be, whichever is higher.
Okay. So in that case, what I do want to bring up is Ultra Balls give +2, or not +2 difficulty to escaping, but I guess if you have +2 difficulty to escaping, what would it take? So even at the standard 5, you'd need to be rolling 22.5 dice to have a 50% chance of escaping per turn. Which is more than someone's natural dice pool. But that's for a 50% per turn. Even if you're at a 15%, about a 15% chance over 3 turns. That's where you get like a 61% chance to get caught, so like a 40% chance to escape. So like let's say you move even to a 20, you're already a 20% chance to escape rolled 3 times is a little bit above a 51% chance to fail. So the standard deviations on this kind of stuff are hellacious to try and calculate because of how much you can affect rolls and how much they vary.
I am thinking that they will not that this type of ball will not affect the difficulty. It'll just be how many successes they need.
A higher SR instead of a higher difficulty.
Exactly.
Well,
Since
yeah,
health
but
already dictates difficulty.
yeah, I was about to say, I'm just like pointing out that, like, on the health thing, if someone's like, low, just what those numbers would look like with this.
Because that's SR7, SR10.
Well, that's if we
Right.
keep the Great Balls and Ultra Balls just multiplying instead of it going based off of how much it got past their soul save, with a floor of 5.
I think Okay, so starting with the Pokeball, they need 5 successes to break out.
Yep.
How many? What are the chances on that?
So assuming that someone is full health and they are a little bit past a starting character, so like I'm still talking like attribute 9, like that kind of shit. They've invested slightly into acrobatics and athletics. They have about a 39% chance of escape over 3 turns without modifying anything if they're full health.
Sorry, what was that number again?
They have about a 39% chance of... Oh, no, they had a... Sorry, I had that backwards. They have a 60... They have a... It's technically a 61% chance of escaping after 3 turns. The Pokeball has a 39% chance of just working regardless, without investment. That's with an SR5 for a standard Pokeball with, like, versus a full health, low level, like, shitter Pokemon, effectively. Like, your starter area Rattata would have, like, that. About a 40% chance of getting caught just having a Pokeball yeeted at them. Full health. Then, for all of that, obviously, that the percent chances start nuking or raising depending on which side you're on for every difficulty, because every difficulty is approximately a minus 25% on the amount of successes you're going to get. So effectively for this, like if you look at something and it's like +2 difficulty, that is minus 50% successes. And if you're looking at +2 difficulty, that's plus 50% successes.
I feel like if you are at a point where you would be getting those increased difficulties, it should be very hard to break out on your own. But that's why you've got allies.
Yep. Which, even if the SR is 5, that would mean that, like, for example, an SR5 at +1 difficulty, that is still going to run you about 15 dice to have a 50% chance per turn.
So, Pokeball is fine.
Pokeball
With
is
the way it's balanced.
Okay.
I'm just throwing out numbers so that way it's like pretty clear on like.
Yep.
Because
So
if I say you need 15 dice to have a 50% chance, I think people here can understand what that means.
Come, steel yourself. We are building an army.
Jibe Gab just resubscribed for 29 months. Pokeballs you woo.
Thank you for that resub, Gib Gab, and your 29 months of support. Alright, I think we're good with SR5 for Pokeball.
Yep.
I guess 7 and then 10 for for Great Ball and Ultra Ball?
It'd be 8 for Great Ball because roundup.
Ah, right.
I don't know. Great balls are terrible, so
Yeah.
like I just don't have luck with those things. So
I mean, to be fair, what's written here is literally how they work. The catch rate is 1.5 times for Great Balls and 2 times for Ultra Balls, like in the games.
I will say
problem
there's
is that when the Pokemon Company makes the games, they don't make their mid game where you're supposed to be using the Great Balls is always screwed up.
Yeah.
And in first and second gen, they didn't work right at all. Actually, Great Balls were no better than Pokeballs.
Yeah.
So
actually,
you're
I
probably
think they were
pre-jaded.
worse.
They were actually.
Yeah, they were actually worse than Pokeballs. I think they've had some other issues with Great Balls over the years in the other generations where they would fluctuate between being actually better than Pokeball or the same.
Just don't invest in Great Balls, people. Go from the Pokeball to the Ultra Ball and use your specialty balls when you can. Otherwise, just ignore them. The specialty balls that actually work, by the way, because there's most of them don't.
Most of them didn't work. Like, most of them literally just didn't work.
Most of them are worse than Pokeballs.
But yeah, also in Gen 1, even with Great Balls, like, when they worked correctly, they were also kind of specifically... So, if you use them in certain circumstances, they were literally better than an Ultra Ball, and outside of those specific circumstances, it was literally just garbage.
TLDR Pokemon 1 and 2 were made, or their code was written on a napkin and then pushed into a Game Boy cartridge.
Yep.
And I'm not actually kidding about that. They had no idea how they programmed it. But that's side tangent stuff we don't need to worry about right now. We need to... Let's leave it like that for now. Accuracy should be on the trainer. Soul save dice we can just flat out roll off of the Pokeballs SR for the time being.
Well, yeah, that's how it would actually work.
So
that would be the DC. The SR is the DC.
So I think that covers everything.
SR is
Pokeball.
typically what it would be, but yeah.
Because we got technically like 1 minute.
Well, Zerna did say he was grabbing dinner, so we could take a second.
Yeah, we've got a little bit extra time.
I didn't see that.
My only
Yes, we're talking
issue
about balls tonight.
is my only issue with that current setup is the fact that there's the jump of 3 from Pokeball to Great Ball, and then a jump of only 2 from Great Ball to Ultra Ball. I don't like that. But I also don't like the idea of making Ultra Balls 11, because that's just weird.
Okay,
You
well, in
can-
that case, SR4 for standard, SR7 for great, SR10 for ultra. So it goes 4, 7, 10.
That works.
It doesn't quite keep the 1.5 and 2x thing, but like it does make it an even step.
I prefer
it
the
looks
even
prettier and
step.
hipper.
Yeah,
There's
the
enough people with OCD around. I think that we should leave it like this.
yeah. 4, 7, 10 works for me.
Okay, so just to run through it all. Initially, it goes against the target's physical evasion. Great Balls having -1 difficulty and Ultra having -2 difficulty on this check. If it hits, goes against the target's soul save to start capturing. Great Balls again at -1 difficulty, Ultra at -2 difficulty. Pokeballs require an acrobatics or athletics roll to escape. Escape roll is made at +X DC, +1 difficulty for every 50% max HP you're missing, +1 difficulty for every wounded status you have, caps at +2 difficulty as normal. You cannot second wind out of Pokeballs. You have 3 escape attempts. If the third fails, you are caught, and you must attempt to escape every turn. The SR is 4 for a standard Pokeball, SR is 7 for a Great Ball, SR is 10 for an Ultra Ball. Upon escape, you get your turn minus a standard action.
Sounds good to me.
I will make one note because this is kind of important.
But you can second wind for regular benefits. Okay.
Yeah, you cannot second wind out of Pokeballs, but you can second wind for normal benefits inside.
Yeah, I'm
I
good
think
with
that should be a thing.
All right.
So
One
that way,
last-
like, you
Go
you
ahead.
can get above the DC by staying in there and, like, second winding.
I'm good with that.
One last question. Breaking the Pokemon or Pokeball, does it hurt the Pokemon inside?
I was going with that originally, but I'm thinking no. I after, having it, granted it only happened twice, but I think that should be a no after all.
All right.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do we want Pokeballs to go off of any of the tiered material stats for items? Like, even if it's just like, magic light items.
Oh, they're specialty things. I think they go outside the normal rules. It'd be really hard to fit tiers in.
Yeah, I think they would have their own stuff to them.
Yeah. Unless players are starting to actually play trainer characters, I don't think there's a reason to go that far.
That's fair. I just kind of wanted to see if we wanted to figure out what the requirements would be to break one.
Oh, if you're talking about that, the hit points for the thing.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's what I'm talking about. We're like going off of like material stats for like it being an item, so that way when you damage it, you know how much you're damaging it by.
I'm thinking that it'll be. I'm thinking that they will follow their own rules, no actual hardness or anything like that.
So they just have
It's-
durability, no negations.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm thinking 10, 20, 30.
Considering that these things are technically mass-produced pieces of plastic with ultra-sensitive things on the inside.
Yeah,
I can see that.
exactly.
These are the cheap cell phones you buy off the rack in their local Walmart at midnight. Level of quality.
Though,
of course, Master Balls are just immune, but Master Balls break all
Okay,
rules.
so 30 HP. That is a significant amount.
Yeah, but
that
without
is-
without durability or without integrity, excuse me, that's actually
Yeah, but I'm saying that could take several turns to break. In theory, potentially.
possibly depends on who's attacking, I guess.
Yeah, I was about to say, like, Nova can break an Ultra Ball, like, in 2 turns. By himself.
And since it doesn't have a soul
Okay.
save, if I throw Blight onto something, that would kind of screw a Pokeball. But that reopens a special conversation that we should have later.
Yeah, I was about to say, I think that reopens the conditions on
Objects.
inanimate on objects.
Yeah, that'll have to be another time, though, because I feel that one's going to be a long one.
Yeah, I know we had something about that originally.
I think we touched on it once and then never revisited.
Yeah, we touched on it.
But we touch a lot of things.
What are you talking about now?
The whether or not spot conditions can affect objects. Because we never fully hashed that out.
We'll add that to the discussion for next time.
You got it, Tel?
I'm already adding it to the to-do
He's writing
list.
it right
Oh,
now.
got it. I heard tapping and I was going to ask before doing it myself.
Yep. Also, like, you know, in the thing, I was mostly just double checking all the Pokeball rules stuff to make sure I had everything written correctly.
Google Docs, why do you want me to capitalize those?
Because can and conditions were both capitalized, therefore affect inanimate objects should also be capitalized. Because you set up a nomenclature.
Well, can was capitalized because start of a sentence. Conditions because, you know, I capitalized that in the book.
Yep, I understand, but at the same time, that's why I was trying to capitalize the other things, because Google went, oh, we're doing the every first word thing. Got it. And then you didn't do it. And I went, what?
Yep.
Fair enough.
But yeah, we should have all the Pokeball rules for tomorrow written out in our DevTale notes right there, top to bottom for like everything involving them.
Neat. You feeling good about this, Furry? Does this feel better?
Well, I mean,
If
to some
nothing
extent,
else, we actually
but-
know what the rules are.
yeah, like understanding the rule, but I know that the potentially eating up several turns thing is going to potentially be aggravating, to say the least.
At the very least, you can second wind dwell in the ball.
Yeah.
So we got at least that. Yeah, it's... Pokeballs are stupid. And they've made everything complicated, but...
I don't intend to throw very many Pokeballs at you guys.
I've already thrown like 12. I'm kidding. Kidding.
Okay, very many encounters that will include
it's been like
them.
7. It's only been like 7. Come on.
There won't be very many encounters that will involve them.
Yeah, because it was what, 2 initially, 2 more another turn, and then there's 3 more.
It was 2 initiatively, 3 more, 3 more.
3 more, so
Yep.
8.
Yeah, that was this combat. But then there was also the crate and the stupid ghost thing throwing them at us, too.
Oh yeah,
Yep.
true.
But now we have solid rules, and yes, multiple turns suck, but at least we have standard. We can get our friends out by beating the heck out of the Pokeball without having to worry about killing our friends.
Yeah, we can just Shaun of
Yeah.
the Dead them, and it's fine.
Okay.
Anyways, if Narashi gets caught, we're just going to give the Narashi's Pokeball to you, or to Osmond, and run.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
No,
Yeah.
look. If you want to see carnage, just hand the Pokeball to Nova and disappear.
Nope, I'm going to hand it to Osmond and be like, here's your wife, and then run. And
Oh,
never
no.
be seen again. Because Narashi will kill me.
Heh.
I would hand Narashi to Nova only if I wanted to torture Narashi, and I don't want to torture Narashi. I actually like Narashi, thank you. She is a breath of fresh air in a sea of what the hell's going on. She exhibits all the anger I want to say, but she has the words for it, and I don't have the patience for it.
To be fair, at least you also know exactly what you're getting with Nova.
That's the worst part. I know exactly what's coming. That's like seeing a train coming. You know you're going to get hit. But
Yeah,
there's nothing you can do about it.
you know what's going to happen with Nova. He's going to headbutt it. If he can't headbutt it, he's going to headbutt it anyways.
And it'll somehow work out.
Except for when it doesn't.
Except for when it doesn't. But that's when he's not allowed to roll. When he starts being allowed to roll is when it just starts working.
It's sad that that game has gained the mantra of just stop thinking.
Stop thinking, yeah. Just be a himbo.
Alright, well, y'all have fun. I will talk to y'all later, I suppose.
See you tomorrow, Furry.
Let's go ahead and wrap up this recording here. Thank you everybody for joining us so far on the stream today. That was DevTales as well as an Marten stream. Check out our website, zgfgaming.com. We've got links for our Discord, Telegram, Mastodon, Blue Sky, Patreon, and more. There on the website as well as down in the description below through our link tree. Thank you to my patrons, tippers, and subscribers. It is your support that keeps this channel alive and going. I cannot do this without your guys' help and your support, so thank you. Consider becoming a patron over at patreon.com/zgfgaming. It's one of the best ways to support the channel, though you can also do so by sharing the stream around, picking up packs of cards to stream loots, using our Humble Bundle partner link, or subscribing to us over on Stream Loots as well as YouTube. But for now, thank you so much for joining. Don't forget to commission the artists that I manage for, such as Conrade, who is here today working on a 3D model. And I bid you all the most fondest adieu.
Bye-bye.
Bye.